So, Stephen D here on Pure 24/7 Radio, and I'm joined by one of the writers for Pure Media, the magazine. Hello, Sherri Seligson.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well, and it's a pleasure to be joined by you. So, let's just start with what it is you get up to.
So I'm a marine biologist by trade, but I also write science curriculum and for middle students, middle grade students through high school students, and I speak on topics of science and faith. Very excited to talk about anything sciencey. I'm a self-professed nerd, so that is what I love to do.
Excellent. And that's rather brilliant because your column in Pure Media magazine is Science and Faith. I actually have the April edition of the magazine right here. And if you go to page 10, we can see your column with some great pictures of fossils because that's what it's all about. How old are fossils is the name of the article. So I have a few things I noticed from it. One was fossils seem to be need to require a very specific set of circumstances in order to be formed. So do you mind sort of taking us through some of that?
Absolutely. So in most cases, for something to be fossilized, there needs to be water, and the water must be mineral rich because for a living organism or anything to become fossilized, in living organisms, the actual cells that make everything up they're dead. The animal is dead, and minerals fill those spaces, which is why a fossil looks just like the once living organism, because you're basically taking the outer shells of all of the pieces of that organism and filling them with stone. And that's why they're hard as a rock. And so you can get fossilized and hard things that weren't necessarily super hard. For example, the branch of a tree might be a little flexible when it's alive, but when it's turned to stone and petrified in that case, it's like a rock. And so I have, for those of you who are seeing this on video, I'm not sure how many will see it on video, and I'm not sure you can see it up close, but I have two shark's teeth.
Cool.
The one that's lighter in color is from a shark that's been alive that has recently lost its teeth. They can lose their entire set of teeth every 2 weeks, depending on the species. And then the dark colored one is a fossilized tooth. And that's what happens is the minerals fill up the cells and parts of the material so that it becomes stone.
That's really cool.
But it retains its shape. Yes.
Yes. So with quite specific circumstances needed for a fossil, are they relatively rare?
It would be a very rare condition. If you think about what natural things that go on today, natural processes, we don't see a lot of places where there's highly mineral rich water, where an organism in many cases has to be buried rapidly before its body decomposes. Because if you've ever been, even food in your refrigerator, after a couple of weeks or so, it starts to smell, right? It doesn't take long. Even when it's refrigerated, imagine how quickly it will do it not refrigerated. And so an organism must die rapidly and be protected from bacteria and other elements so that it won't decompose and it will hold its shape. And then again, the minerals must be very populous or filled. The water must be mineral filled so that they can instantly fill in those gaps and take the place of the living tissue. And so we don't see it happening a lot today, very rare. And yet we see what are called fossil graveyards throughout the world. And so what I mean by graveyard is lots and lots and lots of creatures that were once alive and have become fossilized. And we see it not just in one part of one continent, but throughout, like I said, throughout the continents, even under the ocean in some places, some fossils have been found under the ocean floor. So it seems to be more prevalent than we would imagine. And so the question then becomes, does it take billions and billions of years with an occasional situation, or can it have happened all at one time under larger scale calamitous situations, such as examples we see today are rapid volcanic eruptions, which I talk about in the article. Back in the 1980s, Mount St. Helens, which is in Washington State, erupted, and it was a very massive eruption. And there were lakes that just kind of dumped because the mountain basically collapsed, and that water mineral mix as it poured down hovered layers and layers of creatures and formed 1/4 the size of layers to fill a Grand Canyon, and then the water breached later. It ate it out, and it looks like a miniature Grand Canyon. So it happened very rapidly.
Mm. There was a few examples I read in your article about rapid petrification. As I understand, that's slightly different from fossilization. Do you mind giving us some of the differences?
Yes, and so it's a portion of fossilization, but we find fossils that have become rock formed. Petrification or petrifaction is the formation of rock, because petra means rock. And so we have found human remains that have become fossilized. We have found boots, like leather boots, that are fossilized. We've found hats that are fossilized. So we know those aren't millions of years old. Some of them can be dated to maybe 5, 6 decades in the 1950s, 1960s, based on where they're found and the information found near them. And there are places, ladders that have been found in locations where mineral-rich water is pouring over them. The petrifaction just forms around them. And then there's a place in the UK where you can actually purchase fossilized stuffed bears. They actually put those bears and suspend them in this naturally mineral-rich waterfall area. And over a short period of time, relatively short period of time, you have a stone stuffed bear, which is pretty fun. So that we know, those are not millions of years old. And so we know it can happen rapidly. And therefore, that petrifaction, if it happens on the outside, it can certainly move internally to living tissue as living tissue is as the organism dies. And so it's an easily understood next step that could happen, not just an outer coating.
So it's kind of like the beginning of fossilization, sort of an incomplete part of it.
Exactly.
That's cool.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And so there's some examples we've seen in modern history of that taking place, which gives us grounds to question the concept of there being millions of years for some of these things.
Yeah, and I think that, whatever someone's worldview is, I think as from a scientific standpoint, we need to look at all the information and try to find models that best fit the data we get. And we can't just pick and choose and say, well, we can't count that one because something's, I just don't like that one. It doesn't fit my model of what I want to believe. And so I feel like it is so good to look and see that all the data that's out there interestingly fits a biblical worldview, in my opinion. But again, looking at all the data, not just picking and choosing the ones I want.
Yeah, absolutely. I quite enjoy watching a few like crime television series, and they look at the evidence, try to work out what happened, and they could very easily jump to conclusions when they don't have quite all the evidence, but always in the end they will figure it out. So it's the same kind of process, isn't it, with science?
Absolutely. Yes. We are small Sherlock Holmeses, zipping around, not as brilliant as him, but yes, that's the trying to find the clues and make intelligent suppositions based on that.
Absolutely. So that's really cool. Fossils are an interesting thing. I can't say that I have ever found one, but I have seen, obviously, in museums, various fossils, and it's really cool to see those shark teeth that you've got there. They're really interesting stuff. And as it turns out, quite rare, quite I think a hard thing to create. Some of the circumstances required for it. So it's a real learning curve reading your article in Pure Media, the magazine. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today to sort of unpack a little bit of it. Hopefully people will definitely want to pick up and read it because it is a very good article. So we're really grateful for you contributing it to the magazine, bringing your expertise and also bringing your expertise here to the radio. So thank you so much.
Yeah, happy to be here.